Here we are at the MPV fire truck, and what we're going to go over is a general maintenance procedure. And what we want to do first is we want to turn our pump switch off. Second thing we want to do is turn off our valve here, our influent valve. Third thing we want to do is close our influent and our effluent valve. Next thing we want to do is we want to do a manual flush, and to do that we're going to hit next and hold that manual for 10 seconds. What that's doing is it's allowing the membrane to depressurize. Once that's depressurized, we're going to hit manual flush again, shut the flushing off. Second thing we're going to want to do is check our strainer. To do that, we just take that out. What we have here is a 50 micron mesh, and how we want to clean that is just rinse that really good in water, taking out all the mud, leaves, sticks, any debris that's in there. When we put that on, it's important that we just hand tighten it. We don't want to over tighten it. Next thing we want to do is check our pre-filter. To do that, we're going to take the 1/4 inch hose, connect it to the bottom of the John gas valve, turn that valve on. That's going to take approximately probably 2 minutes for that to drain. Once that's drained, we're going to want to take our pre-filter wrench and unloosen our pre-filter housing. Once we take that loose and out, what we have inside of there is a 20 micron pre-filter. What we do with this is we examine it to see how dirty it is. We rinse that out, and if it's not too dirty, we'll just put it right back in. Then we'll go ahead and tighten our pre-filter back up. Keep in mind we want to just hand tighten this also. Next thing we're going to want to do is examine our strainer and our thimble screen, which are at the top of the home spring. And to do that, we're going to want to drain our module. So we're going to take that same hose, connect it to our effluent valve, and turn that on. That will also take about 5 minutes to completely drain out. So now that our membrane is done draining, our next step is going to be to take the backwash off. So how we're going to do that is hit next and manual one more time. That'll stop the backwash from running. We'll next turn our John gas valve on our effluent line and remove our 1/4 inch hosing. What we'll do next is remove our filter cap. There's a little step here, so what you want to do is just step up there. Now in this cap there's a filter, thimble screen, we have this mesh here. What we want to do is make sure it's completely cleaned also. So we'll take that, rinse it out. And at the bottom of the membrane is a little thimble screen. To remove that, you remove that, make sure it's really clean, rinse that out. That's our last line against our membrane, so we want to make sure that is real clean. We'll insert our strainer back into our membranes. Now on this filter housing, we want to make sure that our O-ring is nice and clean. So we'll take a rag, make sure that's real nice and clean. Then we'll have this Dow 111, we want to apply just generously on that O-ring. What we want to do is we don't want that O-ring to dry out. This cap too, all we want to do is basically just hand tighten it. So after we take our filter cap, we hand tighten it. Our next step is going to be a CIP, and that's a clean in place. So we'll take our syringe, we'll pump that with 400 milliliters of bleach. So we'll turn our John Guest valve on, pump our bleach in 400 mils, turn our John Guest valve off, and then we want to make sure that we pump that bleach into the influence side of our membranes. So we'll take that syringe, turn our John Guest valve on, turn our John Guest valve on here, and pump that bleach in. Once that bleach is pumped in, we'll want to turn our John Guest valves back off. So now we have bleach in our membranes. The next step is going to be to repressurize our hose system. And to do that, we're going to turn our pump on. We're going to turn our influent valve back on. And then we're also going to want to turn our bladder tank on. We're going to want to turn our influent valve on, and that's what's going to pressurize our system. Now once this reaches maximum pressure, our pump's going to shut off. So now we reach maximum pressure. What we want to do then is make sure our influent valve is shut, also making sure our effluent valve is shut. So now that our membranes are up to pressure and our valves are completely closed, our next step is what we want to do is we want to let our membranes sit in that bleach under pressure for approximately 1 hour. So now that our hour is up and it's been sitting, our next step, what we want to do is we want to get rid of that bleach, and to do that we're going to want to do manual flushes. and we're going to want to do 3 of them. And each one is approximately 5 minutes. So to do that, we're going to want to open our influent valve again. And then we want to hit next. Manual flush is going to come up. And we're going to want to hold that for 10 seconds. Now this process takes about 15 minutes because we want to repeat this 3 times. So now that we've completed our CIP, our next step is going to, we're going to want to close our influent line. And we want to shut our pump off. That's going to be important in this test. We're also going to want to do one more manual flush. And what we're going to do there is just depressurize that hose system so we can start our integrity test. So now we want to hit next and hold the manual flush for 5 seconds. We're going to watch our gauges go down to 0. And when they hit 0, we know we're ready for our integrity test. So we'll turn the manual flush back off. Our integrity tester. And to get this started, we're running it off a 12 volt, which we can connect straight in here. And to do that, we're going to want to hook our 1/4-inch line into our influent valve. And what that's going to do is it's going to allow water to pass through our membranes, but it's not going to allow air. So we'll hook that in, turn our John Guest valve on. Then we're going to want to take our integrity tester, plug another 1/4-inch valve into our integrity tester, and the other end into our effluent, turning that valve on also. So now we're ready to get our test started, and it's going to say integrity test. It's going to have an up and down arrow and then one arrow to the left. What we're going to want to do is push that arrow to the left, and it's going to give us one option, vertical. So we're going to want to hit the down button, and it's going to give us another reading, horizontal. When it comes up to horizontal, we're going to want to hit that left button, and it's going to start doing our integrity test. Now it's going to run through a 4-process procedure. So now we got our test results back, and it says ultrafilter passed. So that's going to conclude our integrity test. But if it did come up membrane failed, you're going to want to refer to your owner's manual. So now our next step is to disconnect our lines. So the first step we're going to do is disconnect our 12 volt power line. Our next step, we're going to turn our influent valve off. We're going to want to shut our effluent valve off, disconnect it from our integrity test, and then we're going to want to relieve all that air pressure that we had just pumped in. So we're going to turn our effluent line back on. Once all that air pressure is off, turn our effluent line back off, disconnect our 1/4-inch valve, and that will have concluded our integrity test. So now our integrity test is finished. We're ready to put it back online. And to do that, we're going to want to turn our pump on, turn our influent line to tank, which is going to feed from our tank, turn our bladder tank back on, turn our influent line on,